Children should not be held in immigration detention centres. Did you know that as of the 30th of November 2015, there were 609 children held in detention centres all over Australia? The most common reasons for families to leave their homes consist of not feeling safe in their own countries. By having things like threats, terrorism, war, no human rights, no freedom, no jobs, religious persecution, and even being stateless and not accepted in your own country. Being a child and having to go through any of these things will be terrifying enough. And then having to come over on a boat to a completely new place and be put in a detention centre where they are put through traumatic experiences within the camp, limited of education, and have their childhood taken away from them. How would you think that would feel for them? Firstly, I believe children should not be held in immigration detention centres because they are put through traumatic experiences and left to deal with the PTSD on their own later in life. There is evidence to show that detention centres leave a significant negative impact on the mental health and well-being of children. 85% of detainees say that ever since they entered the camp, their mental health has gone down. Detention centres have never shown a positive response, and the most common impact on the emotional health of children were the feelings of sadness and constant crying. Most detainees share their experiences with the effects of worrying, restlessness, anxiety, weight loss and food disorders, nightmares, sleeping problems, aggressiveness, headaches, self-harming, nail biting, bedwetting, shouting and screaming, and even not being able to be in a room alone. Medical staff conducted mental health assessments of 234 children aged between 5 and 17 who have grown up in detention centres. The results showed that 34% of the children had mental disorders that were the same seriousness to children referred to hospital for mental health. Less than 2% of children in the Australian population have mental disorders at this level. From January 2013 to March 2014, 171 children threatened self-harm, ranging from ages 12 to 17 years old. 233 assaults of children have been reported, along with 33 reported sexual assaults against children and 27 children participating in hunger strikes. Would you be okay if your own child had to go through these traumatic experiences which would cost their life and stay with them forever? Secondly, children should not be held in immigration detention centres because they are limited to the right of their own education. These families leave their homes for a better lifestyle so they are able to work. They come to Australia for them to then have to sit in a traumatic detention centre for around 11 months where they are not taught or educated whatsoever. How are they meant to get a job when they leave the detention centre if they were not properly educated? The education within detention centres goes against a child's right to enjoy the maximum possible development. The ACM, Australian Correctional Management, runs all 6 refugee camps around Australia. In a policy of theirs, it included general preschool and primary school classes with no specific guidelines regarding curriculum, hours of education, or the qualifications of the teachers, but also did not include any education for secondary school students. Overall, detention centres would be too much of a difficult environment for kids to be able to concentrate and actually absorb what they are learning. But I believe that the detention centres should work around these complications and adjust for the education that the children have a right to learn. How would you feel if you went to all the trouble to go to a new country, to have more opportunities and create a life for yourself, but you aren't able to do that because you don't have enough knowledge to get yourself a job? Lastly, children should not be held in immigration detention centres because they are then not able to have a childhood and will not know how to deal with the real world. Being in a detention centre in general will be bad, but imagine growing up in a detention centre, it being all you know. You are robbed of your freedom at an age when it is most important. Childhood sets the foundation for the rest of their life when it comes to learning, behaviour and health. The experiences they have in childhood shape their brain and the child's capacity to learn, be social and respond to different challenges. If they spend their early years of life trapped in a minimal amount of space with no freedom or anything to keep their brain active and not being able to grow up in the real world, how do you think they're going to able to deal with anything for the rest of their lives outside of the detention center? How would you feel if your own child was not able to run around freely with their friends, or you are unable to have a real meal with your own family? Overall, children should not have to be held in immigration detention centers because it will ruin their life. They are put through several traumatic experiences which will stay with them forever and are left to deal with as they grow. They are limited to the right of their own education, which will affect them in the future when they are ready to find a job. And lastly, it robs them from their own childhood. They receive little to no freedom at all and are unable to experience the real world, which will then be difficult for them as they leave the detention center and are still left to deal with the aftermath of all of this. Think about it. If you had to travel in a boat from an unlivable country and then put in a detention center where your loved ones will stay affected forever, would you be happy? Would you be proud of the law and that no one outside who didn't truly understand what you were going through and your experiences wasn't there to protect or stand up for you? Would that be okay with you?